Hello and welcome to Murray's Golden Hour. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And before I begin, just want to make it known and make you be aware that you might hear some loud banging or popping or explosion-ish sounds, and that is from people setting off fireworks. And I don't know if you'll be able to hear that or not, but yeah, people are setting them off. It is broad daylight at the time that I'm recording this, so I don't understand why they would set them off now when you really can't see them. So I don't know if this is about a sound thing or a visual thing, but in my mind, you'd want to set them off when it was at least a little bit dark. Though not so dark where it's late at night or early in the morning and people are trying to sleep because maybe they have to get up in the morning. I've had plenty of those mornings, and those are not fun when those things go off, especially those really loud cannon ones. Yeah, good times. Anyway, so I skipped last week. I didn't record because at the time I felt like I really didn't have much to say or share or anything of interest to add. Nothing that was like mind-blowing. Basically, the info that I would have shared would have taken all of, I don't know, maybe 3 or 5 minutes, possibly longer. I'm sure I would have found something to talk about, but I decided instead of just rambling on last week, I would bottle it up and share it this week. So here we go. What were the things I wanted? Oh, so I know that I talked about Genius Aretha, which is on the National Geographic channel. It is one of the latest series that is up for Emmy nomination. And I saw one episode of it so far, and that one episode just blew me away. And it was very moving and emotional on many different levels for me. And first and foremost, for me, I have memories of Aretha Franklin, well, as a kid, and just having my parents play the music, or my grandmother playing the music, or just listening to it on the radio. But the first time I ever did a lip sync performance was when I had a stint working with Cirque du Soleil, and I was working in their in the wardrobe department. And for this particular time, what city was I in? I was working in St. Petersburg, Tampa. And specifically, it was with the tour for a Kidam. And at this particular point, it was around the holidays. It was around Christmas. So this was during the week of their last show, like the last run for that city, before they went off to Japan, which I was very, 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 very close to joining that one myself, but it was not in the cards for me. Anyway, so one of the clowns, Hoshan, had asked me if I wanted to perform for their techno show, which when I was told techno show, or when I heard about that, I thought it was like techno music, and I was like, well, I'm not a DJ. I mean, I could try. I had a brief stint with that. Another story for another time. But anyway, so I just said yes, not knowing what the heck it was or what he was talking about. But I found out that the techno show is a show that is performed during the dark day, which is usually for any theater, it's always on a Monday. And this was no different. So the dark day was Monday, and the techno show was anybody, primarily the technicians that work behind the scenes to perform something in front of the other artists and any of the other technicians or visiting Cirque du Soleil executives that came by. Or even for, because I think in that one, I'm trying to remember, yeah, there was like a permanent house for one of the Cirque du Soleil shows. I can't remember what it was called. And I believe they were also in Tampa, but like in a different portion of Tampa, or they were in a nearby city, because I remember seeing the show at some point. So it was for any of them that wanted to come by and visit and hang out. There was also that night a one of those like dinner cruises along some river someplace that was going to be the Christmas party for that show. And it was a specific invite. I think it was just for those that worked on Quidam and their spouses. But they may have extended that invite to other Quidam people. I'm not too sure. Anyway, all that I know is that I didn't necessarily have that invite extended to me at that time. There were a couple others who were also on that non-invite list, but there was one person in particular that had the invite. But she was kind of like, I don't know how she went about getting it, but she was able to get it somehow. Anyway, so Hoshian asked me to perform with him, and what he wanted to do was Aretha Franklin's version of Say a Little Prayer. And so I also didn't know at the time that Hoshian had a drag show back in Spain. And which, I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. I just thought that he just clowned with Cirque du Soleil, and that was it. Not knowing that he had a whole separate life ahead of all of his years of touring with Quidam. Not saying that people don't have lives before that, but the thing is, there's so many of these people that were with the company for so long. Some of them practically grew up within the company. Even some of the kids who were babies, they grew up and they started working on their tricks or their form or their gymnastic skills within Cirque du Soleil. So anyway, so we rehearsed this and, went through our share of like butting heads on things, but ultimately I deferred to him because it's his piece. And I went ahead and shopped around for my costume, head to toe. And the storyline behind it was I was the diva, and Hoshian is my backup performer. And throughout the song, it's about us battling for that dominant position. And I can't remember if I came out on top or if we just had a draw. I can't remember what it was, but it ended in some kind of really cool and funny way. And so prior to that, my experience with these people was, it was like I was working in this department and I wasn't, necessarily part of the team. And so there was a bit of distance that was there. But then like working in Tampa, people opened up a little bit more and were a little bit more friendly and just more personable. And overall, I had kept to myself. There were a couple of like going out parties or house parties that happened in the other city that I went to. But again, I still just kept to myself. I mean, I wasn't cold, but I also didn't like do extra and just go above and beyond to like, be on all the time and try to be buddy-buddy with everyone. I went in, I did my job, cracked some jokes here and there. I was being myself, but I didn't like go out of my way, like I said, to be extra. So, kept that same mentality even when I was in Florida, and even though people warmed up to me. So Hoshian and I, we were on the show. Oh, and a little side note is that I had a little bit of I don't want to say nemesis, but just people that wanted to like throw their weight in my face or throw their like, I don't know, they were just like showing off and they were being extra and wanted to like throw that in my face. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like I did not care. And I also was not seeking what they were seeking. So, that energy stayed throughout the whole entire time, and if anything, it looked like the winds of change had come down on them when we were in Florida, and they wanted to, bemoan to me, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I could care less, and I wasn't having it. But it's not that I put up a wall on that, but I deflected it. That's the best way I can describe it. And so winds of change happened and more people were kind of gravitating towards me. And again, kept up my same energy. I wasn't like, I guess, behaving as if I was grateful that they were throwing little crumbs my way. It's like, all right, you want to throw some crumbs, that's fine. I don't necessarily need to eat them or bend to pick them up. So the techno show happened, and there were people that were part of that techno show that didn't know Hoshan and I were going to do something until that night. Because I don't even think we had like a dress rehearsal. We might have had like a quick sort of a rehearsal, dress or not, like right before performance, but that was pretty much it. And so there was like a group of people that I thought I was going to perform with that basically it was like, we're not going to let you join in our reindeer games. Or like I was told that, yeah, you can join with us and do this. But then they like changed their minds on it for whatever reason and left me in the dust. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, whatever. I don't have to perform. And Hoshan and I were performing, like after I got like dumped, you know, Hoshan had asked me if I wanted to perform. I'm like, all right, sure. Honestly, it made me no difference either way. I really was not affected by any of this. Like, that's how zen I was about this whole entire thing. So, moving along. Hoshan and I, we performed, and I believe we got a standing ovation, and then came backstage, and people were like, oh my gosh, that was so good, and then a bunch of other acts performed, and the one that I got dumped from, turns out they were not nowhere near as polished. And it just, from what I remember, it fell flat. And so everybody came on out. The show was over. Everybody came out, did their bows, and I had planned on just going back to my place. And I had no plans on going out, so much that the clothes that I wore there, which is pretty much like flannel and sweats, I changed back into that. I think I still had my makeup, but I was pretty much like do-rag flannel sweats. And they were like, oh, you should come to the Christmas party. What, you're not coming? What do you mean? And like, so I was not prepared for that at all whatsoever. And I thought, all right, well, why not? I'm down. But I didn't have a formal invite. And they're like, oh, just come on anyway. They're not going to check. So, sure enough, I was able to get on board, and they didn't check. And yeah, I went on like having flannel. Like, I did not look like I was supposed to be part of the party at all whatsoever, but I went on with it. So anyway, that was my first foray into lip syncing, and it was with Aretha. That was the opener. Since then, I did other lip sync performances, and a couple of them were dance performances. And I think the other one, it was Aretha, and it was Think. And it was like this big old thing, and I was, you know, the central character, like the Aretha character, and with my backup dancers. And yeah, that was a lot of fun, and it had since earned me the nickname Maretha, so which is a combination of my name and Aretha Franklin. So that is my Aretha Franklin story, and that I'm going to keep short and move on to some other things I want to discuss, and I'm going to do my best to keep it short. So thank you for hanging in, and thank you for being patient. Let's see, other random things that I happen to see. One of them is a movie called Endings Beginnings, and Sebastian Stan is in that. And all that I can say is, even though the movie, it's kind of like, it's slow-paced, slow-moving, I kind of got into it, and it had some steamy stuff about it, and it just, anytime I see the steamy scenes now, especially if they're well done and it makes you feel something, I still wonder, like, wow, how were they able to get into that? It doesn't matter if it was a closed set and there's minimal people on set. You're still doing this. You're still performing something that is so intimate, especially if it involves nudity in front of strangers. Unless it's like, this is a crew of people that you've worked with for several different productions or for years. They're still strangers. And even if they're friends, it's like, you don't necessarily want to be naked in front of your friends. I don't know if it makes it easier or harder to do it in front of friends. And yeah, I know, I speak from experience. Yeah, stories for other times. But, so endings, beginnings. It's, I don't know, it was something that I watched and I appreciated it just for how it made you feel. And it's not a earth-shattering, mind-blowing earthquake movie, but I mainly guess I watch it for Sebastian Stan because I'm a fan of his and Anthony Mackie's, and yes, I have yet to see Falcon and Winter Soldier, but it seems like it'd be good. Oh, there was a documentary that I watched called Battle at Versailles, the competition that shook the fashion industry. And basically, it's this competition, more or less, between French and American designers, which I think this happened in the 70s? Like, I don't know if it's like mid-70s, early 70s, late 70s, possibly getting into the 80s. And basically, they took 5 French designers and 5 American designers, and they pretty much just had a fashion battle. And it was just awesome. And I wish I could remember all the names. I think like Eleanor Lambert was one of them. I know that there was this awesome black designer who was involved, and actually I think he's the only living designer from that event who they were able to interview for this documentary. Darn it, if I could, I feel so bad that I can't remember his name now. And I think at the time when I watched it, I meant to write this down, and I just got sidetracked and didn't do it. But I think Yves Saint Laurent was one, and Halston was another. Yeah, there's a list. I'll see if I can try to remember that for next week. Anyway, check that out if you are interested in fashion at all. It was very, very cool to watch. And very telling. Something I recently saw was actually today. It was one of a few Amber Ruffin clips that I watched, and this one in particular that really just like, it's called Beyond Tulsa: The Secret History of Flooding Black Towns. And overall, what this particular clip was about is about the lakes across our country that have been filled, and they used to be all black towns that were surviving, that were thriving, and just full of cultural history and significance. And in short, they were filled with water to create lakes. Many lakes that are just that people boat on and have fun on and have no idea that there is a city underneath. And one of them, as I understand it, has, I guess, like every year, somebody ends up being killed or drowned or something. And I don't know, some people, they can explain it away by maybe it's hauntings, maybe it's people just being irresponsible with their swimming or boating. But I don't know, something to be said for that. And I was aware that towns had been flooded, but I wasn't aware that they were all black towns, and the reason for the flooding and how they went about and why. And so it was enlightening for me to hear that. And I'm feeling a couple different ways about it. On one, it's like, it's kind of sad that so many people, myself included, are being educated by late night comedians. But on the other hand, I am appreciative that this is around, and there are shows like Amber Ruffin's show that are able to educate people and bring about this awareness and still make it inclusive, because I know that there are plenty of people in other cultures that maybe they are turned off by learning someone else's culture, either because they just don't care or maybe how the information is dispensed. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought, and I had it. Well, anyway, so there are things that I have learned myself when I was in college or after college. Well, yeah, definitely after college, because I'll just keep on learning until the day that I leave this mortal coil. But as far as formal education, there are some things that I learned just because I had specific classes. Maybe it was learning about blacks in the media, so that was more entertainment driven, or other cultural studies classes that I picked up, educating myself by going to the library and reading certain books, hearing about different subjects from friends. Not Friends, that TV show that is like, ugh. But my own personal friends. Educating myself by researching at the library or the internet. And just listening to elders. Growing up and just living that history myself has definitely made things aware on, or I have been aware of these things, and they've been on my radar since birth, really. But I know that in grade school or high school, I did not learn about any of these things. I was not educated on Black Wall Street. I was not educated about this flooding. I was not educated about redlining in my own grade school or high school at all. And let's just say that had I been educated on these things, it was not in a way that encouraged me to learn more, or encouraged me without pointing a finger at me to further educate everybody else in my class. Anyway, so that there's that. So if you can, definitely check that out. And I know, like, one of the commenters under that particular clip for Beyond Tulsa, the secret history of flooding black towns, there was a commenter who mentioned that she was creating an educational playlist of a lot of the clips from the Amber Ruffin show. And I gotta tell you, like, if you have not watched Amber Ruffin's show, please subscribe to that channel and check out the clips. It is just a wealth of a lot of fun, funny, hysterical, and educational, enlightening subjects. Just, it runs the gamut. There's a lot of geeky things, there's culturally significant things, there's just a lot of good stuff, a lot of good, like, nuggets of wisdom and definite kernels of truth, whether it's current, past, possibly future. But yeah, definitely check it out. It is well worth watching. Something else I came across today was it's actually an article that a friend shared with me, which that the New York Times had written. And from there, I did my best to try to, like, read as fast as I could, but I apparently had more than reached my quota of free articles that I was able to read on within the New York Times. Like, I reached that quota like a while ago, so I had to hunt this article down a different way. But it is Dispossessed Again. Climate change hits Native Americans especially hard. And specifically where I was able to find the article so I could read it, it's called newsjcd.com. That's NEWS. J is in Jack, C is in Charlie, D is in David.com. So newsjcd.com is where I was able to read the article. And basically, in short, it is about Native Americans being displaced by the effects of climate change, and how the waters are rising and creating the breakdown within any structure when it becomes flooded with water somehow. Like, basically, if you were to try to build something on a swamp, or in swampland, and all the effects from that, whether it be from molding, breaking down the structure, warping the wood, splitting concrete, humidity, and what humidity does to a building. Just all of that. It is, and then to not be able to move away from that and to have to put up with it. Nobody should have to. So, yeah, definitely check that article if you can, newsjcd.com, or if you already are a subscriber to the New York Times, look through it through the New York Times. And let's see, what else? There was a couple things that I made notes about to talk about last week, and it's interesting how time will either heal. I know it also helps to forget, but it will also assist with perspective, or to help you gain perspective, because I know that one of the things I thought to mention, or just one of the things I knew that I know that I was upset about at the time, and likely I got even more upset just because of other things that were going around in my life at the time. It exacerbated this frustration and potential anger, was being kept on hold by a certain corporate entity that everybody tends to shop with. And no, it's not the online shopping one. It is a brick and mortar. But it's very well known, and people shop at it for a lot of media goods. So that's about all that I'll say. But I was kept waiting like over 30 minutes on the phone, just kept on hold. Dealing with a representative that was making like, I don't know if they thought that they were being funny by cracking jokes, and like they were kind of cracking jokes I just didn't quite understand, and they weren't like knock knock, who's there? It wasn't like that, but I don't know. It was a really weird exchange. And then they put me on hold to find out an answer to the issue that I was having, and I was kept on hold. Now, normally after a while, I just go ahead and hang up, but I'm like, no, they'll come on back because they are diligently finding out the answer to this problem. And I was kept waiting, and then at a certain point, after a while, I'm like, all right, you know what? Let's just see how long I'm going to be kept on hold. And I was in the middle of rush hour traffic at the time, and I was on hands-free, so I wasn't like holding my phone, but so I was able to concentrate on the road while I was on hold, because all I had to listen to was the on-hold music. And and at the end of that, the call just disconnected. So I'm like, huh, really? All right. So I called back, and only to be put on hold and then quickly disconnected yet again. So, yeah, I was none too pleased. But that's basically the kind of, I guess, like maybe 2 weeks that I was going through. So that's why I just went ahead and just skipped the podcast for last week, because I didn't have anything positive to contribute or to ramble on about at the time, and I didn't want to be on this totally negative plane. Alright, so what else can I share with you? A lot of traffic. I don't know if you have experienced this, but it seems like it got worse. Like there was that uptick in traffic when things were opening up, like a percentage in most places, which I expected that, and that leveled off after a couple weeks. But then all of a sudden, there was a lot more people, and this was, I think, this was even before things were supposedly opening up 100%. And then since then, it's just been bad. The places that maybe would take, like, I don't know, let's say 10 minutes of normal driving, pretty much have extended to 50 minutes to over an hour. And I am not exaggerating. So anyway, something that I saw, and I've seen this before, and I just don't understand it. When there is thick rush hour, like so thick that nobody is moving, like either nobody's moving at all, or it is that slow crawl of like 5 or 10 miles an hour, or maybe if you're lucky, like 15, 20. But there's like a cop that has pulled somebody over, flashing lights and all that, and it wasn't like they were like on the on-ramp or at the exit ramp. They were like in one of those like divots that are like in between like a lengthy entrance and exit between between exits, basically, I should say, or entrances, however you want to look at it. And I just wonder, like, what could they have possibly been doing that the cop or the highway patrol would pull them over? Like, were they weaving? Were they texting on their phone, and that's why the cop happened to see it, and that's why they pulled them over? Were they speeding, like, on the street and then got on the exit and then got into traffic? Like, I don't know. It kind of baffled me to see anybody pulled over, especially where I saw them pulled over. It was one of those, like, little divots that cops would usually, like, hang out in. So, but not like an overpass one, but it's just like a curved out, like, it looked like it'd be just parking for, like, three, maybe 4 cars at the very most. Like one of those divots. Anyway, so, alright, just a few other random things, that these are either things to watch or to listen to or articles to read by chance. So, and some of these things I may have mentioned in the podcast before, or maybe a couple podcasts before, I think. So I'm just going to like run down this list, and here we go. So a movie that popped up on my radar that at some point I will check out is called My Last Day Without You. I think Kerry Washington is in this, and it's not a new movie, but something about it made me want to watch it. Can't remember what it was. Oh, you know what? I saw a scene. She was singing a song, and I think she was playing piano. I don't know if she is really playing piano in real life, or I'm pretty sure it's her singing, though, if not singing, and potentially playing the keyboard. But it was, I don't know, it was kind of moving. I know I mentioned this one already. Galatea's Guitar, as far as music is concerned. Check that one out. There's a couple of plant companies. One of them is LA Plant Company, and the other one is like Ambius. Yeah, they're one of those like interior landscapes and home and office decor, or home and office foliage things. I just find that kind of neat, and just surprised that I'm only recently finding out about this. I mean, I've known about it for months, but it's still like a newish concept to me. But it seems like it's one of those investments that would be great if you had a business and you want to like shrink the place up a little bit. Cheekbone Beauty, I know I mentioned that before. Run by Indigenous owned and run, and products that proceeds go towards Native American youth. There's an article, it's called Time to Cut the Cord on Electric Vehicles, and it's an article from, I believe it was the Washington Post, and they were talking about having like chargers built in the roads, so when you pass over it, you can kind of like give your car like a little extra juice, as opposed to waiting until all of it runs out and then you have to go find a charging place. So I thought that was interesting, and don't know why we don't already have that everywhere. I know that there was a couple of testing cities that they were doing that in. I can't remember if it's like one's in like Portland and the other one is in Washington D.C. or like Virginia or something. There's a movie that's called Bernie that I thought it was a documentary about Bernie Sanders, but it turns out it's actually based on the real story of a man named Bernie. Jack Black is in it. Just check out the synopsis of it and you'll see why it was intriguing. I had no idea what I was watching at first, and then I got sucked into the movie. Let's see. The song Hanging on a String by Loose Ends. The song Blackbird by the Beatles. there's a Nine Inch Nails Queens of the Stone Age clip that is them rehearsing for an award show, and I can't remember what the song is that they were jamming to at the time, but it was really good and a lot of fun. I didn't watch it, I just listened to it, and that was just all kinds of yummy. I may have mentioned this. There's I think the article was in more words, in these words, less, more so, what have you. An Olympic hopeful blames burrito for positive drug test, and this is an NPR article or story. And basically, she tested positive for, I think, steroids, and the Olympic Committee gave her a 4-year ban from this year's Summer Olympics and the Paris Olympics in 2024. So I don't know how valid that is. Basically, she claims that she ate a like a street burrito from like a street vendor that was, and I guess the meat was enhanced with steroids, which I guess there's scientists that say that yeah, it can happen. Then there's another group of scientists or school of thought, I guess, that says that the chances of that happening are slim to none. You know, I don't know. I don't know really how to think about that. I mean, as far as steroids are concerned, I guess what you want to do to your own body, as long as you're not bringing harm to other people. Although they do say that steroids is harmful, so I don't know. So I guess with that, I'm going to go into music that's popped up on my radar. So these are the music recommendations. So here is Mari's list of music coming to you now. Yeah, the theme song, haven't nailed it down yet. One of these days it'll come to me. Alright, so here we go. Voodoo Child, Jimi Hendrix. Another movie that I watched. Actually, another couple movies. I watched Bill and Ted Face the Music, the latest movie. It's something to watch. I'll leave it at that. I do like the inclusion of, and I doubt I'm going to be spoiling anything about the movie by mentioning this. Not talking about the plot at all, but they do include Jimi Hendrix and Louis Armstrong in this, and that was fun to watch. So, Jimi Hendrix, Voodoo Child. Another movie that I saw, and again, sorry, these are just a couple of side notes. The movie's called Nobody. Isla Neishuller is the director of that film, who is Russian, and a lot of John Wick folks have been involved with this particular movie. It's actually pretty good, and I was a geek and checked out the commentary with it, and I'm so glad that I did, because from that led me to just a lot of juicy details. Number one, about the film and the direction and choices that were made, and also this group. It's a Russian group. I believe they're called Leningrad, and a couple of music videos that this director Isla Neishuller directed, and they're really good. And from there, you can kind of catch like glimmers of what's to come from this film Nobody. So if you haven't watched Nobody, definitely check it out, or put it in your list of movies to watch. It's pretty cool. If you enjoyed any of the John Wick films, you'll definitely get a kick out of this. And for sure, if you can, check out the Russian group. They're called Leningrad. Okay, moving on, going back into the music. Pets by Porno for Pyros. And that one, just a lot of memories. The group Porno for Pyros. Just, that Jane's Addiction, obviously, the whole Lollapalooza thing, and it was just a great time in life. Just, oh man, a lot of cool memories with that. Thorn in My Pride, the Black Crows. Six Underground, Sneaker Pimps, Hush, the Marias, Stuttgart 75 Eins. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, by the group Can. This is just, it's like I think like a 20 or 40 minute jam session that is just so flippin' cool. And I think they were a band that like came about in the 70s, I think. I could be wrong about that, but I think the particular track that I heard that was long, and I didn't hear the full like the extent of the music. I think it was like a live version that came out in 1975, but definitely check that out. Let's see. Ooh, another side note. I watched the movie Bamboozled by Spike Lee, which I'd heard the title, and I'm surprised that I didn't watch it. And probably at the time, maybe I could have been like Spike Lee'd out a little bit. I have seen his movies. Oh, boy, there was like another one that came out. Darn it, I can't remember the title of it, but it's very cool. Dear White People. I finally watched the movie, and it's really good, and it reminded me of School Days, which is directed by Spike Lee. So if you haven't seen Dear White People, it's pretty good, and it has just stylistically, it's very cool to watch. I think, if you are a filmmaker, it's definitely worth taking note of this movie. Even if no matter how you feel about the subject matter, just as a filmmaker, just for the stylistic choices that were made in shooting this movie, kind of cool. But Bamboozled, Spike Lee, I'm glad I watched it, and I think it came out in 2000, so that was, over 20 years ago, and unfortunately, it's still relevant. Okay, getting back to the music. Salsa, let's see, I think Salsa de Santa Rosa, it's various artists. Darn it, I don't have any more information about it, but it does sound cool. Really, really cool. Salsa de Santa Rosa. Rebirth of Slick. Cool Like That by Diggable Planets. That's just, I went old school with it. Or a little old school. Bridge Over Troubled Water, Aretha Franklin's version. Optimistic, Sounds of Blackness, which I believe Sounds of Blackness, they are still active even to this day. So Optimistic, that one, it's, put you in the feels. Wake Up Everybody by The Roots. I Might Be Wrong, Radiohead. Mango by Mango by Natalia Lafourcade. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. They by Gem, and that the Gem is spelled Jem. Octopus by Block Party. Humpin', the Gap Band. And yeah, Humpin', I was just like, you know what? I hadn't heard that song in a minute, so let me go ahead and throw that up. I'm going to wrap this up pretty soon, but I'm going to end this just by, I'm putting this out there, because I feel like it's something I want to share, and by me verbalizing it, even though, nobody may even listen to this particular podcast, I don't know. Or I guess sometimes I do know, but overall, I know I'm not one of the cool, popular, happening podcasts out there, and there's so many podcasts to enjoy. So, or I guess so many podcasts to not enjoy too, but anyway, I feel if I put that out there, I am verbalizing it, so I'll be more inclined to do it, and it'll motivate me to make sure that it happens. So, last month in June, I gave up coffee. Not forever, but it was just one of those things I just wanted to give up, just to test myself. There was a year where I gave up drinking during my birthday month in May, and I just wanted to see, what effects would this have on my body if I didn't drink for a full entire month, and just, gave my body and myself a break from that. So I can't remember what the results of were from me not drinking alcohol that month. I don't know if I noticed that much of a difference, but it motivated me to see what else I can give up, just to test myself, why not? And that is what led to other things that I set little goals for myself for, and which I don't know, there's something to be said for the little goal. Yeah, I know that there's the big lofty ones, make $1 million by X amount of years or whatever, but to save $10, there's nothing wrong with having that as a little goal, or maybe save $10 per day or $10 per week, whatever. It's a little goal, but those little goals do add up into something. So my goal for well, I started it actually yesterday, but I'm continuing on for this week, but ideally for July. I'm just getting a few days head start on it. So my plan is to go back to intermittent fasting, and I want to meditate daily. And I also want to do some form of exercise. So I'm like tripling down on this one. So the exercise, because I'm tripling down, and I want to see if I can try to like meditate daily, because for me that's it's huge. And I know for some people can like meditate whenever, wherever, at the drop of a hat. But for me to do it consistently, I've never done that before. Like I would do it maybe for like a week or a couple days a week or here and there, just very sporadic, but I haven't made it a goal to meditate every single day. So that's what I'm going to do for July. And I'm not going to put a time limit on my meditation. What I will say is that I will make it be a range. It can be as little as a minute or longer. So, because again, little goals, and there's nothing wrong with having a 1-minute meditation. So, nothing wrong with any of it, even if I want to do a 30-second meditation. But for me, I like to have like that nice round number. So even if it's a minute, I'm going to do it. But although in my mind, it's like, no, you can go for 5 minutes at least. So, but anyway, I'm going to meditate daily, and I want to do some form of exercise. And yoga likely will be my go-to, especially if I'm going to do it daily. And only because I know that that's something that I can sustain with my schedule. Now, the exercise daily, that's the other one that I'm still waffling on. All right, am I going to do this daily? Is it going to be 3 times a week? What I will put out there for right now is that I will do some form of exercise, whether it is yoga or walking or a HIIT exercise or some crazy like beach body thing. I, at the very least, will do it 3 times a week. But my goal will be for something daily, just to get myself in the groove. And again, because I am going to like triple down on things, I don't want to like load myself up with all these goals, and then I become overwhelmed, whether it's overwhelmed by, things I have to do in personal life, work, all the above, obligations to other people, obligations to myself, etc. So now that I think I got the big bulk of some of the things that prevented me from doing some stuff last month, I feel like I have a little bit more freedom for this month. So there are a couple other little goals that I have set off to the side for myself, but these are the big ones I'm really going to try to stick to for July. So again, putting that out there. So thank you for letting me share that. And I'm going to close this up with a quote from James Baldwin that I discovered, which if you watch one of the things that I have mentioned or listen to one of the things I've mentioned, you will come across it too. So I'm going to share it with you right now. And here is his quote. People pay for what they do, and still more for what they have allowed themselves to become. And they pay for it simply by the lives that they lead. So again, I'm going to repeat that. People pay for what they do, and still more for what they have allowed themselves to become. And they pay for it simply by the lives they lead. So, with that, I am going to wrap things up, and thank you from my heart so much for hanging out with me for Mari's Golden Hour. Feel free to check my YouTube channel for some clips that I they're between the podcast clips that I'll put up on the YouTube channel. And you know what? Going out there and enjoy nature if you are able to. Say hello to the sun, say hello to the moon, and try to do some meditation if you can, even if it is for 30 seconds. And with that, I share gratitude and appreciation, and thank you for hanging out with me for Mari's Golden Hour.